Good evening and welcome to episode 6 of Your Vegan Life. I am joined tonight by a vegan doctor, Dr. Andrew Little. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Pleasure to be here, Harry, as always.
Yes, this is actually the second time that I've had the pleasure of your wisdom. We did an episode last year on the Vegan Hour.
We certainly did.
Yes.
We certainly did.
Now, your Vegan Life is brought to you by Vegan Frothers, Cruelty-Free Clothing, and Scindian Natural Food Products. Now, we're going to get straight into it tonight because tonight is a bit of a coronavirus COVID-19 special. Well, actually, let me ask you straight off the bat, what's the better terminology to use? Should we call it coronavirus or should we call it...
Coronavirus is the umbrella term. You can call it COVID-19. Coronavirus sounds good.
Okay.
Well, I've heard you describe it as the karma virus, mate, and I like that.
Yes, well, I'm trying to keep it a bit more politically correct here, so let's call it the coronavirus.
Coronavirus is politically correct, yes.
This is for a wider audience. Okay, I just want to find out a little bit about yourself. So for people that have not heard of you before or have not watched last year's episode with you on it, who is Dr. Andrew Little? What are your credentials? And just give us a little bit of your vegan journey.
Right, so I grew up in a country town, Maclean, the Scottish town, Australia, and my parents own a small supermarket back there. I grew up eating meat and dairy with every single meal. At the time of my life in uni, I was drinking 6 litres of cow's milk a week. I'd go through 2 3-litre bottles a week, no dramas. And I'd have meat with every meal. I probably wouldn't even thought of it was a meal unless it had meat in it. And I met my wife when I was about 29 and I just started medical school. We went on a date and we sat down at a Chinese restaurant in Brisbane. I'm pretty sure it was Chinese. And she ordered a tofu stir fry and I ordered a chicken stir fry. And I said to her, "Are you a vegetarian?" And she said, like it was some sort of alien type thing. But I said, she said, "Yeah, I am actually. I'm actually a vegan. I don't eat any animal products." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Why is that?" And she said, "Well, for animal cruelty, sustainability, and a few other reasons, obviously." And I said, "Yeah, I'll be honest." I said, I didn't really want to know about it. I said it put me off meat forever. And she turned to me and said, very, very politely, she said, "Well, that's probably one of the most ignorant things I've ever heard." And I, instead of getting angry, like a lot of people do, a lot of people, food is a religion. For a lot of people, it's a culture. It's ingrained in our blood. And people get very upset when we talk about food and try and take away certain foods from them. Instead of getting angry, I said, "Yeah, you're right. But, what have you seen that I haven't? And what makes you go vegetarian?" And she said, "Watch a couple of documentaries." So I watched Earthlings, I watched Cowspiracy, Forks Over Knives, and a few other ones, a few staples that I guess a lot of people who follow a plant-based diet have seen. And I realised pretty quickly that there are a number of reasons to go turn to a vegan diet. And I realized once I studied the impact on human health, on health of the animals, and on the health of the planet, I was left with really no other rational choice other than to just start eating a plant-based diet. I went vegetarian pretty quickly, and I kind of deep down I always knew that dairy had its issues, and I look back now. I've been vegan for probably over 3.5 years, and I look back now and I can see why I'm really glad I ditched dairy too, because it's incredibly cruel, and it was something I didn't even think about. So I became a full-grown doctor, not a full-grown doctor, just a junior doctor. In 2014, and I am now sort of 6 years into my career, and I just sat my final exams in anaesthetics. I'm a registrar, so I'm what we call an advanced trainee. Now my exams are all completely on hold because of the coronavirus. So, that's my story, I guess.
And what a good story it is, because I remember something you said last year that do what you know until you know better, and then when you know better, do it. Is it? I've probably paraphrased it not quite as eloquently.
Like, I live by this saying: do the best you can until you know better, and then when you know better, do better.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing that sort of kept me going. I kept educating myself, and the more I'd come home from uni and sort of instead of studying for uni, I would be reading about plant-based diets and sustainability and things like that. And I realised that I had this huge passion for the environment, and I kind of realised that it was so conflicting. I was choosing things in my daily life that were just destroying the planet, and I considered myself this environmentalist. And I realised pretty quickly, and a lot of people will probably get upset when they hear this, but I really genuinely believe you can't be an environmentalist and still continue to eat meat and dairy. It's horrendous for the planet. But I always encourage people to start reducing. I think that's the natural progression to do it, and just keep educating yourself. And a couple of other quotes that I live by was my wife said to me, we must not refuse to endure with our eyes what the animals have to endure with their bodies. And if it's hard enough for us to watch,
Well
then just
said.
imagine how hard it is for them to go through what they go through. And I think if you just look at ethics alone, I never used to think about it, and it wasn't the primary reason I went vegan to start with. But if you just look at ethics alone, I think that's a big enough argument to really stop what we're doing to these poor animals. So here I am.
Yeah.
I'm 6 years not eating meat, and 3.5 years not eating meat or dairy, and still not protein deficient, still alive.
I want to get on to talking about the coronavirus, but I just want to ask you one last question. And how much better do you feel for having made that change with your health and with your life in general?
Mate, I can't tell you how good I feel. I've literally, I feel so good every day. I feel so much energy, and I think one of the best things. I'm a very glass half full kind of person, but I think one of the best things is every day I get to live by my morals, and I know that all the choices I'm making, it's sort of is going to benefit the world. It's going to benefit the animals. It's going to benefit myself. And I ran a 100K race, about, I don't know, 10 months ago, and we raised $305,000 for melanoma, and mate, I was running amazingly quick. I started off the training with a surgery on my leg, so I had a massive gash on my leg that needed to be stitched up from a surfboard injury. And I was hobbling around. I was the slowest runner in the team of 12, and then by the end of it, I was the fastest runner on the team. And there was one guy who was faster than me, and he'd done a lot of sort of professional running, so I was never going to catch him. But mate, I've never felt better. I felt great. Mentally, physically, I've got all the energy in the world, and my brain still functions fine. I can still give anesthetics at work.
Fantastic. And we've got a comment there from David. Good evening, David. He's saying good evening to both of us. Thank you for watching. And finally, before we get on to the coronavirus, I want to congratulate you on having a vegan family, because not only is your wife vegan, but you have brought, I should say, you have brung a vegan child into the world. Doesn't that sound intelligent?
Yeah, brung the child into the world. We've actually, Harry, I don't know if you know, we've got another one on the way too.
I didn't know.
So, yeah, our second little bundle of plant protein is now on the way. 20 weeks in. He's got a bit of a big belly, too much plant protein. But we've got a little boy coming, my wife has been vegan since she was 18, and
Great.
she had a vegan pregnancy. She was fine. She didn't miss any nutrients. She just did the same thing as I do. And Harry, our little guy, same name, named him after you, mate.
I know. I was so impressed when I when I found that out.
He's a Harrison. But he gets Harry or H. But yeah, mate, I'm blown away by that little guy. I was always a little bit concerned at the start because there's a lot of unknowns for me, especially growing up on meat and dairy. But mate, he grows from strength to strength, and his mind, it just blows me away. He's a very special little guy. So, and I'm looking forward to meeting the next one.
I look forward to interviewing him soon on Your Vegan Life. But in the meantime, tonight's main topic is the coronavirus, and I want to throw some questions at you, and I want to benefit from your expertise. So let's start off. I want to find out, the coronavirus is an infectious disease. I want to find out where infectious diseases come from.
So, like we spoke about, Harry, I just say to everyone, obviously, I think the biggest thing is, this is my own personal, it's not my opinion, it's from scientific consensus, but I'm not representing the medical profession or anyone else. I'm representing me. And I speak for myself and my own personal beliefs. And my beliefs are based on science. I'm based a lot of my beliefs on scientific data, and that's what I sort of, my whole job revolves around that. But I don't speak for Gold Coast Hospital. I don't speak for Queensland Health. I don't speak for anyone. I speak for me. But yeah, I think here's the $1 million question: where did the coronavirus come from? Where do infectious diseases come from? I think I've heard all the speculation about where this coronavirus has come from. I'm not sort of ignorant to all the I guess the conspiracies, and I enjoy a good conspiracy as much as the next person. I think if from most plant-based people will question everything, and I think that's natural to do because I feel like in my life when I started transitioning to a plant-based diet, I had the rug swept out from underneath my feet a number of times, and that can sort of lead to a very distrusting sort of mentality. And
let me just ask you that: what exactly do you mean when you say that? I mean, in what examples of the rug?
Well, like I'm told you need calcium from cow's milk.
Right.
You need to drink cow's milk, and you need to you only get your protein from meat, and they're told all this sort of stuff, and the amount of garbage that's out there that a plant-based diet leads to more animal deaths than a meat diet, and all this garbage that you have to sift through, and that you can't sustain life on a plant-based diet, and it just makes me really question everything. And what we're taught to believe this at a very young age. The meat livestock industry, they infiltrate schools at a very young age. I saw one of my friends went to she follows a plant-based diet. She went to a weaning of breast milk course the other day, and was sponsored by the Meat and Livestock Association of Australia. I'm like, so they infiltrate everywhere. Yeah, it's pretty insane. It's something I didn't really think about, and I guess if the 10-year ago Andrew, and the now Andrew, completely different. And if the now Andrew was talking to the 10-year ago Andrew and saying all these sort of things about the livestock, he'd probably be sitting there going, "Oh mate, that's just a massive conspiracy." So to me, it makes perfect sense now, a lot of these things. But the coronavirus, obviously there's a lot of conspiracies, and I'm sure we can touch on them. But here's the bottom line, and the bottom line is that the CDC, the Centre for Disease Control, and the United Nations Environment Programme say irrefutably that 3 out of every 4 of these viruses and these infectious diseases, these zoonotic diseases, these diseases come from animals. And occur through zoonosis, so transmission from animals to humans. And I don't believe this is a conspiracy. We have been running, like, the fact that they think that this is a manufactured disease. Well, we don't have to manufacture this disease. We are we are running the perfect experiment right now, right under our very noses, every day, where we just stack hundreds of thousands of animals into tiny little cages, hundreds of thousands of chickens all lined up beside each other, and humans going in and taking eggs, or preparing the chickens or preparing the meat. We are playing with fire, and I've talked about this so many times. I've talked about animal agriculture being the number one cause of antibiotic resistance, and we're just pumping stacks of antibiotics into these animals, and we go around injecting them with vaccines to try and reduce spread, and we have to study all these diseases because we're creating them. There's research labs around the world that study this stuff. And there's a possibility one of the viruses could have got out from one of these research labs. I don't know, but it's a common saying, if you hear hooves outside your window, it's not going to be a zebra in Australia. It's going to be a horse. And what I mean by that is, like, if you just think about what the most likely cause of this is, it's been right under our nose for a very long time. And I'm not saying that it wasn't manufactured by China. There's a lot of data and a lot of scientists out there who studied this virus and have written papers that I have read that show that this is, and they talk about the molecular structure of the virus that they've studied and show that it's not genetically engineered. And there's some very smart people out there whose whole job is to do this. So, I tend to trust them and I tend to believe them because they're experts in their field. But like I said, I also trust the other major scientific organisations like the United Nations and CDC, who state that these quite often come from animals, and it's been happening throughout our history for right from back to the Spanish flu all the way through. Measles is thought to originate from cattle. Spanish flu is thought to originate from cattle, from livestock. The swine flu certainly originated from there. Bird flu came from chickens. So, or whatever. But it's, wherever it came from, there's always going to be speculation. But I think the answer is pretty obvious to me.
What would you say to people that would say to you, oh yes, but the science, there's a lot of science on it and all the rest, but there's a lot of science against it, and there's there's a whole hidden agenda by the governments and all the rest to to control us, or it's whatever whatever today's most popular conspiracy is. Because I want to ask you that, because when you mention science, I know sometimes people will say, oh yeah, but there's a lot of scientists now saying, oh, it's not looking like it really came from animals. Any feedback on that?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's natural to question things, and I applaud anyone who just doesn't take things, as gospel. Like I said, when I was younger, I just assumed you needed calcium from cow's milk. That's where you get it from. And if cows have so much calcium, then they only eat grass, and where the hell do they get it from?
Yes.
So it's natural to question, but like so many conspiracies, and they keep coming, and all these conspiracies keep coming, but there is always a perfectly logical, rational argument and explanation for why these things come. And a lot of these conspiracies have been debunked, and people love conspiracies. And I'm not going to change. Tonight on this broadcast, I'm not going to change anyone's opinion on the conspiracies. There's going to be a lot of people who are listening who are very interested in it, and who are very interested in where I think it comes from. But and they're the people that I would like to talk to. There's a lot of people who will, no matter what gets put in front of them, their mind's made up. And that's it. And it's the same with choosing you see people who just eat a predominantly meat-based diet. Their mind's made up. It doesn't matter what I say.
That's true.
Whatever it is, they're set in concrete, and that's it. And religion's the same. People. Same thing. Their mind's made up. I'm not religious, but I don't judge anyone who is religious. But in the day, I'm not going to be able to change them and convince them.
There's definitely a whole psychological reasoning behind why people have to hang on to thoughts and really vigorously defend them. But I don't think we've got enough time to go down that road tonight.
There's a lot of psychology involved in that.
Yes, so I'll wait till I have a professional psychologist with me to go to explore that area. But I do find I do wonder. I'll put it this way: I do wonder with the people that want to throw up ideas that it didn't come from animals. I just wonder how many of them are actually not vegan, or how many of them are vegan. In other words, I've said this before on a different live stream I did, that if you're not vegan, you're not going to be looking for the animal connection. You're going to be looking elsewhere, and you're going to come up with crazy ideas. You're not going to look at the effect of animals because you're just not in that mindset. So I do tend to think that if you're not vegan, you're going to come up and say, oh no, such and such government created it, or all these other particular reasons. But
without a doubt, Harry, and you see it all the time. People, and like I was incredibly guilty of it. I had my eyes closed. I said to Sarah on my first date, my wife, I didn't want to know about it. And this is the thing, we don't want to know about it, because if we, and the hardest part about it is if you accept that animal agriculture is the number one cause of infectious disease spread, zoonotic diseases. It's the number one cause of deforestation, species extinction. It's a leading cause of climate change. It's the number one cause of, I think I said deforestation, but greenhouse gas emission, fresh water consumption. If you have to acknowledge all that, then you have to, and that meat is the number one cause of all that, then you have to acknowledge that you are contributing to that. And that's, I'm not pointing the finger at anyone, but that's what I had to acknowledge myself. And it's hard because meat and dairy is a culture that's ingrained in our blood for so long. And I think for a lot of people, it's about just trying to, just sort of start them on that journey. I truly believe, going from a veg, whether you go veggie or vegan or whatever, some people can do it straight overnight. It's amazing. My wife did that overnight. She's unreal. But I believe it's a bit of a journey. You just got to keep educating yourself, keep moving forward, and just have an open mind. This is the thing. The same science that's telling us, the same science that's allowing us to communicate now tonight and broadcast to Facebook. It's the same science that allows us to get on a plane and fly around the world. It's the same science I use in my anaesthetic practice every day that helps people. We can actually save lives in the medical system, and it's the same science that is telling us that these diseases, which predominantly come from animal agriculture, and it's you can't pick and choose the science you want to believe in. You either trust science or you don't. People are very happy to believe in science when it benefits them, but when it goes against what they believe, they're very resistant to it. And I believe you got to have an open mind. You got to and you apply the same rules of logic and reasoning to every bit of data that's presented to you. And the signs are there. The signs have been. This is not a surprise. There have been scientists that have predicted this disease for a very long time and suggested we prepare for it. We have, in Australia, we have prepared for it. We have, reserves of PPE. I don't know how much we have of things, but we definitely prepared. We've prepared for it, so we knew it was coming. We didn't know what was coming.
I've actually read just recently that they knew it was coming in China in relation to the wet markets. They've had minor versions of this pandemic occur in recent past. I can't think of the exact examples, but I was reading it in the last week where there has been other outbreaks, and there's been warnings that something major would happen if they continued down this path of having animals slaughtered in these open markets with all the diseases that are involved. And I was reading some graphic descriptions of what is involved, and I was thinking, my God, it's as you were saying earlier, we have created the conditions for this situation to occur by just what they're doing in their daily life that they consider normal in some countries.
Mate, we are running the world's biggest experiment, and it is just an experiment of putting all these germs side by side, and how much CO2 can we pump into our atmosphere before we can't breathe, and how many trees can we knock down before the oxygen starts to run out. And if you look at one of the latest posts from the United Nations Environmental Program, they put up 5 reasons for these zoonotic diseases. And it was, I'm going to try and remember them, but it was deforestation, animal agriculture, number one cause; climate change, animal agriculture, one of the leading causes. They actually put livestock and animal agriculture as the third cause, and the fourth one was antibiotic resistance, which is, again, the leading cause is antibiotic. And then the fifth one was obviously these exotic animals. So 4 out of 5 reasons for these. People point the finger at China and they say, well, the wet markets, sure, this disease might have come out of China, but the next one, it could very easily come out of Australia. It could, because it happens all the time. Salmonella, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, all these diseases, they're all transmitted from eating meat. And if you think about it, we're knocking down all the trees. We're just clearing land like at a rate of like 50 football fields a minute or something. That's from the World Wildlife Fund. And then bats have to go and live closer to other colonies, and all these animals have to they're forced into these smaller areas. So it's not just the animals in captivity; it's also the wild animals they've got less habitat to live around, so they are closer as well. And we just knock it down their homes just because of our taste buds.
There's a couple of comments there. Bella says, "Oh, hi, Andrew. I didn't know you were a doctor. We'll have to hit you up." And Emma says, "Preach." I love it. Thank you, guys.
I'll keep preaching. And I think I'm pretty sure I'm a doctor. Yeah, I'll try my best.
I hope you are a vegan doctor. That's what we need more of. Just on that topic of the experiment that we're running in the world, this great experiment that of throwing CO2 around and animal agriculture industry and so forth. What is your opinion as to why we are living our lives that way? Why are we creating this disastrous experiment that's been going on for almost forever?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty multifactorial. Again, this is my opinion, but capitalism is a huge cause of our problems. Trying to, the profit motive is driving so much of this, and we ravage the planet just all for money. I can hold my hand on my heart and say I think capitalism definitely served its purpose. It certainly got us to where we are today, and the development of things. And was it a good thing that we developed all this? Well, nature would suggest no, but from a lifestyle perspective, we're living pretty long now, and all that sort of stuff. We've got access to some amazing things, and we've done some amazing things as humans, but we need to evolve to the next step. The survival of a species is dependent on how well they can look into the future. And we don't have a crystal ball, but we have a pretty good idea of where we're headed. And we've been looking at our destiny for a very long time, and we've just gone through some of our country literally burnt to the ground, and animals just suffered and humans suffered, and then we followed that by some crazy floods, and now we're being ravaged by this disease that's spreading. And mate, if I was, this just sounds incredibly corny, but as I've been a doctor, I look at people and go, oh, there's the signs and symptoms of disease. Well, have a look at the earth. It's just screaming out at us. If the earth was a patient, you'd be looking at it going, bloody hell, it's infested with all sorts of things. And we've been living out of harmony with nature for a long time. And this coronavirus has really shown how fragile our system is, because we've collapsed. We've essentially just gone complete collapse, and people going out of business. It shows you how fragile capitalism is.
Yes.
And yeah, and it's some warning signs that we've been living on deadly ground for so long. Like there are so many documentaries out there with people who are microbiologists and infectious disease guys who are out there. They all know it, that animal agriculture is number one cause of of antibiotic resistance and microbial spread, and yet no one is speaking out about it, and that's why I'm here tonight, Harry, because like I'm not here to point the finger at anyone. I just want to promote awareness, and as I always say, I'm not asking you to think like me. I'm just asking you to think, and if people just think about it, it's just there's a lot of things that make sense in my life, and reducing meat and dairy really makes sense.
Yes, of course, of course. There's a comment there from Susie. Don't forget to mention about 5G that's being installed whilst we are all in lockdown. I don't want to give that too much airtime because we could go on for hours about that. But Susie, I do want to say that I have actually posted on my page in the last day or two numerous articles, or a few articles, that actually show the opposite of that is what's happening. That in fact it has been delayed in Europe, the UK, the US. It has been delayed during lockdown. So if you just do a Google search, or if you look on my page, go back to the last day or two, you'll see that. So carrying on from there, how long might this last with the coronavirus?
Well, yeah, it's the $1 million question again. I'm not an infectious disease specialist, so there's another disclaimer. I don't.
Why the hell did I get you on then?
All right, that's the end of the broadcast. Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sort of going off what the experts are saying, and we get daily updates at the hospital, and there's a lot of really intelligent people who are leading the way out there, and it's pretty amazing to see. And I think we're definitely sort of starting to. I lost my train of thought then. What was I saying?
That there is
I just got distracted.
many intelligent people at the hospital, and
Yeah.
well, the question
I
was,
can't remember.
well, the question is, how long could this last, basically?
Well, yeah. So, look, at the end of the day, we are sort of obviously predicting it to be a few months, and it could be 6 months. It could be. We don't know how long. At the end of the day, the numbers are starting to reduce, and that's the main thing. We're not really seeing at the moment on the Gold Coast. We're not really seeing the numbers come in. We're very prepared for it, and we're all sort of and everyone's sort of sitting around waiting for anything. We're definitely prepared, but who knows how long it's going to go for? I don't know. That's something I just don't have a crystal ball on, and at the end of the day, it's going to go long enough for us to really feel the full brunt of it. So
it's good to hear that you're prepared, that you've got obviously the equipment and the facilities to handle something on a larger scale if it does happen.
Oh, mate, we've done. It's been really amazing to see some of the leadership taken at the hospital. With I can speak on behalf of the anaesthetic department. A lot of my bosses have really stepped up and really sort of we're starting to do sims. We do sims all the time, and we get very prepared. We're obviously we get obviously the nurses involved in that, the surgeons involved in that, because and we've got we got all the facilities there, and we certainly have had a lot of changes to the hospital system just to get ramped up for this, and so it's been a really sort of it's been good to be part of that team.
That's great. There's a couple of comments here from David Thomas, who says, I believe this is a warning shot. There will be a huge one coming very soon. And that's quite possible. That I hope that we see signs of people are making the connection here, that and going vegan, because that is the way to solve the problem. Just cutting to the chase there. David also says, get your garden of vegan meals into your fellas.
Is that Damo, was it?
It's David Thomas. So yeah.
Oh, it was David, right. I thought you said it's Damo. I just actually had a golf meal tonight. I had the pad thai, so there you go.
Oh, Damn it, I haven't had one of their meals for a while. Gardener Vegan, if you're watching, Damien or anyone else, just deliver some to me, will you? Hey, yeah, I've got another question for you. How contagious is it?
Yeah, so that's the sort of stuff that I wasn't super familiar with to start with, but obviously you'll start to take a bit of an interest in it when it happens. So we measure that by the R naught value, and essentially the R naught value sort of, I guess, there's a lot of stuff going around about, it's no worse than the flu and the flu's fine, and I think I've never seen the flu cripple a healthcare system the way COVID has. And I think we've now surpassed CDC state that the amount of people that die from the flu in the time COVID's been around is anywhere from like 20 to 60,000, and we're now well over 64. I looked last night, I imagine the number's up even more now, but the other thing too you got to keep in mind is those numbers are sort of the stats, and when everyone's been in lockdown. So if we didn't lock down China, then 64,000 people in China could have died in probably one day. I don't know. It's insane. So
Actually, that's a really interesting point. I just want to get you on that point there. That we're
yeah,
comparing, because there's been a lot of comparison about the COVID-19 in relation to the flu. And the
yeah,
difference between the two, you've just brought up a point there that I actually haven't seen or heard, but it makes so much sense, which is we're comparing a flu in an open market, so to speak, or in an open world versus coronavirus in a lockdown situation. And in a lockdown
exactly, man.
situation, coronavirus is having devastating effect and spread versus the flu
Yeah,
in a normal normal in quotation marks in a normal world. So really good point there.
mate, 100%. Yeah, we don't have to lock down the country for the flu, and we've locked down the whole world, and we've still got more deaths than the flu. So and you can't compare them. So we look at the R naught value, and we say that an R naught value of 1 means that if one person gets the illness, then they'll spread it to, on average, one other person. And so last time I looked, COVID was an R naught value of 2 to 3, and the flu was less than that. So
Mm,
it's more contagious, and it's got a higher mortality rate, and people come and speculate all the time, and people say to me all the time, well, I think the mortality rate's this. I don't think that's the truth. And I was like, well, hey, like I'm not. Who am I going to trust? Am I going to trust these guys, these scientists who study this their whole life, or am I going to trust you? I'm not going to trust. I'm not going to listen to somebody's opinion.
mm,
What I am going to do, I'm going to trust the scientists who say it, and it's 10 times the mortality rate than the flu. So
mm,
and we're seeing nations be completely crippled by it, and I've never seen the flu completely overwhelm the capacity of a first world healthcare system. And New York
mm,
has a first world, and Italy and Spain, they're all first world countries with and they're just being crippled by it. So
mm. Even as you said previously, even in lockdown, they're still being crippled by it.
exactly. And then the other thing is, people will always say, well, more people die from heart disease, so why are we worried about this? Well, I'm not scared of catching heart disease from people. I can't catch heart disease. Like, I can't catch, more people die from diabetes or stroke, but, if I see a patient in the hospital who's got diabetes, I'm not worried about catching it. So this is why you can't compare
Mm,
these diseases. And to say that, I just think,
yeah.
there's a lot of misunderstanding there, and this is the reason this is crippled the world, is because it's highly contagious, and it has potential to kill a lot of people. Sure, there's it's majority of these people dying are the elderly, but Spanish flu wasn't the case. Spanish flu, the people who died were the 18 to 25-year-olds. So
Yes.
and whoever said it before, that the next one could be absolutely disastrous. We could be, and I've said this. I think I look at COVID right now, and it doesn't really scare me that much going to work. And I've been involved in a COVID case, suspected, and I was like, okay, go and do what we're trained to do. But mate, if it had a mortality rate of 50% or something like that, and it was bad, I would be scared, and
Mm,
I can tell you right now, a lot of people would be, and that's what scares me, is because it's not. it's not if the next one comes, it's when the next one comes, and keep doing what we're doing. We're in for some trouble, and I really hope we learn from this, Harry. I really hope we do. History would say we won't, but I don't know. I hope something changes, because I'm trying desperately to spread the message, and I don't know. There are a lot of people who are listening. It's great, and it fills me with a bit of hope. But yeah, there's a lot of people who don't.
Yeah, I wanted to actually ask you, as we sort of look at maybe starting to wind up, ask you about how seriously people are taking it. Here, some of the press that I'm seeing here in Australia, showing photos of a lot of people down the beach that are basically just taking the self-isolation concept into, this means we can do anything we like. So, we continue like we've got a unpaid holiday sort of thing, so they're now closing off the beaches. And, I just noticed that there is many examples coming up of people that just don't seem to be getting it.
Yeah. And look, I think that's fair. I'm a massive fan of kite surfing, and I think from a social isolation perspective, I sort of I'm out in the ocean, and there's no one for bloody kilometres, so it's quite nice out there. But I'm happy, I think we kind of need to clamp down on that, and I think the government are right there. Like that, when I sort of saw that, I live beside the beach, and I saw it on the weekend. A lot of people there, but yeah, a lot of people are keeping their distance, and I can see that, and which is good. And I think a lot of people, I think in numbers in Australia really reflect that. I feel like people are taking it like seriously, but if you look at New Zealand, I was speaking to a friend in New Zealand last night, and he was just saying that they're literally just homebound and they're not allowed to go out for anything. So New Zealand are really hitting it on the head. And I think that's probably, I don't know, but I'm happy to be guided by what the health professionals are saying. They're the ones who know. So I think it's the right decision.
Yes, yeah. Let's hope. Let's go back to what you were saying a couple of minutes ago. That let's hope that it does get through to people that that this is a warning shot. They need to make changes. Let's not say they. We collectively. We.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's so much we can do just by purely shopping at Woolies. There's so much, and that's what I was saying at the very start of this podcast. I was saying I feel so good that every day I make choices that benefit the planet, and this is the thing. You stop focusing on what you're missing out on. You stop focusing on like I used to sit there and think, oh God, I don't get to eat a big steak anymore and things like that, but I don't really miss it anymore because I feel so good when I eat everything else, and I feel very happy, and I feel incredibly justified that I live by my morals. It's a really fulfilling lifestyle. So I'd encourage anyone to just think about it and to start reducing the amount of meat and dairy to start with, and see how you go. Keep educating yourself. Keep moving forward.
Thank you for those beautiful words and a great, I think, a great sentiment to go out on. And I want to thank you so much, Andrew, for just enlightening us a bit about the coronavirus and what it's like sort of being more closely involved with it.
Yeah, well, no, it's a pleasure, Harry. I think I didn't enlighten you at all. I think you and I sort of on the same wavelength for a lot of things. So, but it's just I think it's just nice to talk about, and as I always said, if I didn't use my credentials to try and help benefit this planet, then I wouldn't die happy. I think the warning signs are here, and the signs and symptoms of a ravaged planet are just incredibly prevalent, and we need to start doing something about it.
Yeah, well said. And yes, if people are watching this now on the live stream or later on YouTube or on podcast, then please take seriously what Andrew has said, because we can't continue on the way that we have been living our life selfishly, trying to live limitless in a limited environment. Something has to give, and things have been giving. Andrew, if people wanted to get in touch with you, you have Instagram, is that right?
I did, Harry.
You don't?
I went off Instagram and I went off Facebook for about 8 months, and then I sort of started to get really tired of the crap that was out there. So I went on to Instagram. So I've got my own Instagram profile. I just titled it Plant Based Doctor. It's pretty original.
I was just
But,
thinking people might have some inquiries. Is it okay for them to contact you there?
100%. I love engaging with the people that follow me. I feel like I've built this really nice community, and people reach out to me all the time. It's funny. My Instagram page is quite therapeutic for me because I can get things off my chest. But I also it is. I tell my wife, I was like, God, it's like therapy session for me. I can sit down and talk about things, but it's just nice being sort of when people genuinely want to just ask my thoughts. I have people who say to me, hey, I'm a vegetarian, and but what are your thoughts on organic yogurt and stuff like that? And they're genuinely interested, and I don't point the finger. I just say this is what I think, and this is why I don't eat it. And they're just there's some really beautiful people on my page, and I'm very lucky, and I enjoy it. So I'll keep doing it as long as people keep listening. So feel free to come and
I will
tag along.
I will share a link to your page because there is a lot of good information in there too. You have your videos and you sort of it's you talk some sense on there, way more than I do. So I love it.
I try and apply common sense to every aspect of my life, and I just don't think too far into things. I just think common things happen commonly. It's a common statement, but I just try and apply common sense. And I try and put up photos of Harry because he's far more appealing than I am.
Yeah, the other Harry.
My Harry, not you.
Yeah.
You're quite appealing too, mate. So.
Thank you, and you're a beautiful soul yourself. But common sense is not as common as it should be. But before we go out, a couple of comments came up then. So David said, "You are what you eat. No one is talking about prevention. Well, government and media anyhow. Just leave animals alone. Our way of life has changed. Really upsetting." Michelle says, papaya bowls are the best. Oh, yeah. Susie says, thanks so much, guys. David said, thank you so much, Harry and Andrew. Two awesome guys. Totally respect the both of you. Thank you, David. That's a beautiful thing to say. And Linda says, thanks, both of you. Lovely to hear common sense. It was lovely to hear common sense from Andrew tonight. Thank you, sir. Your Vegan Life will be back in 2 weeks' time for episode 7. And as mentioned a couple of minutes ago, you'll be able to listen to tonight's episode very soon on YouTube and on multiple podcast forums. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us tonight, Andrew. You've perfected it too. Thank you, good man. I trained you well. And thank you, everyone.
It still doesn't work that well, but anyway.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. So good night, and we'll see you soon.